In this video, I'd like to share some of my key lessons from 2024 because I've made, as any entrepreneur, many mistakes throughout the year. Some of the ones I have now learned from. And the first one that I have on this list is that you don't need to diversify too early. The thing which I mean with that is that around you, you'll always be thinking that other people are having this fantastic growth method that is so much better than yours, and money is always there behind the curtain. However, after this year, I want to tell you that nearly every single time I thought so, it was misleading. And the situation which happened is, imagine I started getting some traction with one channel, and then I would think, oh, it would be so much better to have a couple of them happening and then go try execute the other one. In reality, me splitting the focus turned out into the situation that once something stopped working in one channel, some issues occurred in the other, and then different things started collapsing, and as a result, I wasn't growing as fast as I could have been. That's why you want to understand that, look, if you're trying to succeed and get your, say, first 100 or 1,000 customers by doing like 5 or 6 channels at once, you, in the same words, are making it 5 to 6 times harder for yourself to succeed with every single marketing channel that you selected. Because imagine that you figure out that meta ads work for your SaaS and they can bring you quality customers. Once you also add LinkedIn ads to the list, and then you add cold email and then LinkedIn outbound, this makes immediately everything, not 4, but I mean geometrically 40 times more difficult than it could have been for you to grow. The second one is, when we don't have problems, we have a bad tendency to create them. And this is something I learned this year, understanding that some periods, the things are just going to be moving in the right direction, slowly but surely. And our brains are wired to create problems when there aren't any. Now I'm aware of that and I can control it better. But what happened a couple times to me this year is, imagine I have a working channel, like for example for myself, where I see the same story happen with some of my students. They would have a working channel, working conversion mechanism, solid offer and value proposition, and basically the way of bringing in customers. But after they just finished this problem-solving mode for a few months and completed the sprint, then they immediately were like, but we need to also start doing this and that, and I'm not sure that this is working, we should test it better. And yes, sure, I understand this race of constantly looking for doing something better, but you don't want to be getting lost in this race. Because again, everything may be just fine and you may just be coming up with non-existent problems just for the sake of creating more problems. Be cautious of that, because I made this mistake a couple times throughout this year when everything was working just fine, but maybe out of boredom or just because my brain was wired to this problem-solving mode, I was like, let me come up with a few other things, start doing more stuff, and make my life more difficult. Don't do this. So yeah, it's not about packing day with work, but rather packing your day with quality actions which do move the needle forward. So what I wrote here means that it's very easy for you to fill your day with 8 hours of fake work. However, in reality, you just need to execute 3 to 4 hours of the correct one for you to have tremendous progress over the course of a couple of months. Number 3 is, if none of your competitors are doing this, maybe it's stupid. And the idea behind it is that not only for my business, but also I've seen my students repeat this, is just they would think, oh, we don't see any of our competitors doing this, we should be the first. There is some sense to this, because yes, you may discover some hidden, secret, cool way of making money, but more likely than not, you are to lose a lot of time and money doing something stupid. Sure, of course, you need to trust your gut and take actions that you believe in. But imagine you're growing some medical solution for enterprise level companies, and you come up with an idea of, oh, let us do TikTok. Yes, sure, it may work, but the mistake you can make here is spending a lot more time and money in this TikTok crazy idea than needed. So 5-10% of energy and effort for 2-3 weeks is a good enough experiment for you to understand, okay, is it even worth going in this direction or not? So what I like doing here now is you set this minimum viable experiment framework in which you understand, okay, if we send, for example, 1,000 outbound cold emails to this one niche and we get 5 meetings, yes, then this thing will be worth pursuing. If you set this criteria before you start this one experiment, you can know in advance whether this is worth continuing or not. This way you just don't waste months doing something that's barely working and not really worth it, whereas you could have just spent a lot more time and effort on maximizing your main revenue generating activity. Then number 4 is about gain mindset versus gap mindset and looking for the wins daily. So this year I read the book, which I think is the best book of the year so far, which is about, I think it's called The Gain and the Gap. The main takeaway from it is that your brain can be wired for the gain mindset and it can be wired for the gap mindset. The gain is you looking for the gains, positives, achievements, and progress, whereas the gap is you being focused on what's missing, why, what am I lacking, why is something not good enough, etc. The easiest way for you to go from gap mindset of like everything not being good enough towards the gain mindset is writing down 3 wins every single day so that you are constantly in this winning process. This way, your mental health is in much better state and it's just much easier to move this way, because if every single day you go to bed and you're like killing yourself for, oh, this thing is not working good enough, that thing is not working good enough. Such way, if you're constantly operating under this stress of, oh, everything is just broken, we must fix this and that, it's just, you can't really be giving yourself space for coming up with good ideas. And sure, it's not that bad to always be looking for improvements, but I think by default, we're just so wired for looking for negatives that it may really mislead you and constantly be pushing you towards some short-term gains rather than focusing on the big vision you could have accomplished. So that's why you want to be making sure that you're operating in the gain mindset of focusing on, okay, what are the things working, how can we move from here and build on them, rather than nothing is working, everything is broken, let us rebuild everything and start from scratch every single week. Then number 5, sales until 1 million a year. So this is the insight I borrowed from the book Ready, Fire, Aim, and I think I might have even shared it last year, that unless you are at 1 million a year, you want to be focusing nothing but sales for your business. The reason behind it is if you do not have cash flow, then you don't have cash to cover all other problems. Whereas, for example, imagine that your cash flow is solid and you're focusing like 80% of your attention on generating more deals. Then imagine you have a problem with a customer. Thanks to you having solid sales and marketing processes, you can then replace them with 5 other buyers. Just because by the time you're figuring out some headaches with this one, you just generate a lot more. And not only it gives you much better negotiation leverage, but it's just so much easier for your business. Because I have started working with one startup at 10K MRR, told them about this sales approach and the mindset that they should look for. And they just followed it and have gotten to 60K MRR now, adding 50K in monthly recurring revenue in just less than half a year. And the idea behind it was pretty straightforward, that we were putting sales and marketing beyond anything else. This way we could consistently be generating deals every single week, so that when they had different problems come in their startup, instead of them thinking, oh, we should look for raising extra funding, or how do we go above and beyond to solve this stupid problem, we're short on funds, like this issues never occurred, because they were like, okay, bam, solved. Simply because they were generating so many more new leads, and that's why whatever issues they were encountering, they were at a good cash position to sort out all of them. That's why you do want to be focusing on sales 80%, if not 85% of all your weekly work time, until you hit this milestone. Then you can sure look into other things. Then another point here is you can open your schedule right now on Google, and if on Google Calendar you see that more than 25% of things are not going to money generating activities, then you have some work to do there, because indeed the Ready Fire Aim guy, the author, generated something like mid-9 figures, and he is just a heavy evangelist of this idea. And for the same reason I have become as well, because I believe it's very true that, well, if you have money, it's much easier to sort out all other problems in your startup, which never end. The next one is number 6. So ads you expected to be too stupid simple to work tend to work best. And the reason I'm saying this is because this year I think I spent more than 50 or 60 grand on different ad experiments. And if I were to give you the top 3 ads out of all I ran, with every single one of them, I was thinking like, this one is so simple and so stupid that if it works, it's just going to be too funny. And for this reason, I just went on and launched it. What happened then is this stupid simple ad turned out to perform much and much better than all other 12 to 16 ads that I would be testing in the same campaign. And the reason I'm writing this here in annual takeaways is because this happened 3 times, that like the ad creative which I come up with, like when going to some pizza restaurant and write in 3-4 seconds, has now been getting me like 10-20 leads a week for the past couple months on autopilot. So this is just crazy, and something for you to think about. It's too basic to work. It will be just too funny if it works out. That's how I put it here. Number 7 is people pay for simplicity, not for complexity. And sure, this may sound very basic, but I'll give you one example. So not just with my business, but also with a couple of my students, they faced the following situation, that they had this unique way of solving the problem in the market with their B2B SaaS. And they had very clever ways to explain the way their solution works. However, if your prospect is going to be choosing between 2 solutions, one going to be your very clever, comprehensive and super sophisticated, and the second one is just going to be straightforward, 3 clear steps and clear process from A to B, from problem not solved to problem solved, solution B, majority of time is going to be winning deals. Why? Because a lot of times, especially if you're selling high ticket, it's going to be multiple people taking the decision whether to go with your solution or not. And for example, you may sell some marketing software and you have a meeting with CMO, and then the CMO needs to convince the CEO that the company indeed needs to go and invest in your solution. If your solution is too hard to explain for another person, they will never do good enough job selling it, and you will end up losing a deal. And you don't want to be in a situation like this. So make sure that you are focusing on selling people a simple, straightforward way of solving the problem rather than a clever, cool way of solving the same problem. Because again, multiple decision makers involved, you need to sell to every single one of them. To some of them, you'd need to convince through a short email. And if you can even test it some following way, that you can ask one person who knows your solution to some small extent to try sell it to another person, and then you witness the process with your own eyes and see, well, if this one guy has already talked with me about this one product for a couple hours and even he does a poor job explaining it, then the potential CMO who would just barely read an email, there is no way they're going to convert it to our like 15K a year deal size. So for that reason, sell simplicity, not complexity. I'll put it this way. Then there is number 8. And number 8 is about the fact that you can make multiple 6 figures a month being a lot less perfect than you think. And I used to believe that for you to be at 100K, 200K, 300K a month, you must have perfect CRM systems, fantastic integrations, all automations dialed in, perfect sales process, like killer solution. Reality is like, you can be there at, 10-20% having all this, but just with a couple of years of purely focusing on sales beyond everything else. That's the true reality. Because I've now, over the course of this year, maybe talked with over 50, 100 B2B SaaS and like other business owners who are doing multiple 6 figures a month. And first I was like, oh, wow, they're like doing whatever, 200, 400, 600K a month. And I thought that everything in their business is on a completely another level. And it was just very interesting for me to discover that in reality, they had so many things not perfect that it was shocking to me. Because back in the time when I was like below 10K a month with my businesses, I was thinking that, oh, guys who are doing 100K, they must have like all these things perfect. In reality, look, you focus on sales beyond everything else for a couple of years, end of story. Seriously. And yes, sure, as you enter further stages of growth, yes, your product team should be not perfect, but it will never be perfect. It should be more polished. Then your systems should be next level, and then a few other things. But until then, if you simply continue focusing on sales long enough, you're gonna be making progress towards it. So number 9, have a way for being in prospects' eyes for a year, even if they don't buy or aren't ready to buy right now. The idea behind it is the following. Only a couple % of people in the market are willing to buy right now. You do want to capture the other 90%. End of story. There are a few ways to do this. You can have them be in your newsletter. You can have a group, community. You can have them watch your podcast. You can have, for example, I have a Telegram group that you can join. And alternative one could be Instagram, stuff like that. Because I'll just explain you that this year I learned that it's really important to be in your prospects' eyes for a long period of time. Because a couple of months back on Instagram, I followed a few creators who were just doing something cool. And I thought that they're doing something interesting. And I had like zero probability of buying something from them. But now them posting couple stories every single day, making a post every other day, and me just being more digesting their world week after week, after 3-4 months, I'm like heavily considering to purchase from them now. And sure, it's not that I rushed to pay for something within a few weeks, but look, it's crazy how just by being in someone's eyes, you can move them from being in like zero chance of buying your solution to them heavily considering to pull a trigger on it. So that's why if you still aren't capturing all these prospects who aren't buying from you, make sure you create some form for this. I think the group can do that. Imagine you're doing some, again, this medical solution. You can do something like medtech pioneers or whatever, and just be sharing insights there every other day. And especially if you're going for high ticket and enterprise contracts, it's crazy that 20 to 30% of your annual revenue eventually may be these people who didn't buy at your first conversation, but just converted after this, say 4, 5, sometimes 6 or 7 months deal cycle. Of course, you should optimize your sales process such a way that they buy on the first call, but of course, selling solutions which are between $30K and $300,000 annual subscription, it's not always as easy. And that's why make sure that you have some way of being in their eyes, especially in front of multiple decision makers there for a very long period of time, so that even if they don't buy, they may potentially refer you to some other organization. And this will only happen if you're constantly reminding them about yourself. Then number 10 is forget fancy systems before you validated the process. The mistake that I've made is I have this, even though it's not that I would call myself an very much operations guy, I wouldn't say so, but I have this tendency of going for building systems, being the systems architect of different backend stuff, and it's just so extra and you really don't need it, especially at the early stages. So imagine that I would decide to go and do one new channel of marketing. The first week I would be like, oh, let's automate this, let's build a system for that, let's build this integration here, and so on. And I would spend dozens of hours myself and a couple of dozen hours of my team in the process and optimizing something that we would discover is not useful at all just a couple weeks down the line. I don't want you to be in the same situation, and that's why validate before you automate. That's the tagline I'm gonna be saving here, because you just can throw so much money into the bin if you spend a month or two optimizing this new channel thing even before you get to the first deal from there. And it's same as, imagine spending 30 to 40 hours optimizing the way your blog looks even before the moment you brought a single customer from it. Sure, it shall look good enough, but as I discussed earlier in this minimal viable experiment idea, you need to set the frameworks at the beginning, and then you can judge, okay, by us investing 10 hours of man effort here, did we generate a deal or not? If we did, sure, it may be worth to continue doing this, or you act accordingly. So number 11 is don't force relationships, and you don't need to do some cringe stuff to find your circle. And this is getting more on a personal rather than business level. However, for me, they're very correlated. And this year I found out that you never get to build nice relationships by doing something that feels off to you and by doing something that feels cringe. For example, in 2023, I thought, I must improve my, I must network with other people so that I'm always getting the best insights, everything, and get more friendships, etc. But in 2024, I realized, now reflecting on this year, that whatever felt cringe to me, I never met people I vibe with by doing this. So the only great connections I made this year were, some came from my cyber sports tournament, where I never thought twice about joining. It was very natural to me. So that's how I'll just share that you form your real circle by doing something that feels natural to you rather than really forcing yourself into activities. If you do not want to do some, arts and crafts classes, low chance you're gonna meet anyone who you vibe with on the arts and classes. And then there is number 12, which is remind yourself of the goal a few times a day and you'll begin taking the right actions. So there are times throughout the day when you actively work and are focusing on something, and there are also periods when you're walking in the park, when you are with your friends, and when you are just doing some other activities. If you are continuing to focus on the one goal and remind yourself of it a few times a day, then a lot of ideas will be coming your way when you are not very consciously focusing on this. That's why I'm sure same for you. You had a lot of nice ideas in the shower or when you were doing something in the park, etc. And this happens when you have a certain goal that you commit to, and then you put reminders about this goal. For example, I have mine on the iPhone background screen and in a few other places. Then even when you're asleep, your brain keeps thinking about it. And as you wake up, it gives you a lot of creative energy to be solving all the problems that are coming your way. And I would say with this one, summary for point 12 is, remind yourself about the goal that you have chosen a few times a day, and then your brain is going to be giving a lot of ideas for you to solve it. This would be my 12 takeaways of 2024. And on that note, I wish you to have a fantastically productive 2025, achieve everything that you decided, and thanks for watching.